So what normally happens in these podcasts, right, is that they start with this informal, candid moment, talking to the camera or making some slip up or saying some expletive before the podcast starts, and then they cut and they start rolling. So with that, hello and welcome to the Jobs That Don't Suck podcast. I'm Dale.
And I'm Lisa. This podcast is for you if you want to unleash your potential and get the career that you want. Today, we are lifting the lid on how to get a job at a tech company. And who better to ask than two top tech recruiters who have been there, seen it, and done it all. So we are joined by two distinct guests. Please introduce yourselves. Tony, would you like to start, please?
Yeah, thanks, Dale. Thanks, Lisa. So I am Tony Hornbuckle. I am based in the UK, not too far from London. I've been working in the recruiting market for probably about 20 plus years, and have focused probably the last 12 years on the kind of the tech kind of side of things. So engineering, product design, and so on. That's me.
So I am, my name is Rose Owens, and I've been working in the Silicon Valley is where I'm located. And I've been in the industry for closer to 30 years. I've seen everything from, gosh, when Jesus walked on water and he decided he wanted internet, I was actually there. So I've been in the life sciences. I've done, high-speed internet via television cable when it was, the internet was just evolving. I have done finance, professional services, everything under the sun, but all here in Silicon Valley. Yes.
So maybe starting again with you, Tony. I'm gonna combine a couple of these questions together. So maybe give us a quick summary of your background. Where you grew up, what did you study, and what's your sort of elevator pitch of how you got to where you are? Maybe tell us a little about your role and what someone that's thinking about going to tech recruitment, what might make them successful in this role.
Oh, yeah. Thanks, Dale. Lots of questions there. So my background. So I grew up in somewhere called Surrey in the UK, which actually, when you say that to people, is usually gets a response of, "Oh, that's posh, isn't it?" But I grew up in kind of the part that was nearer London, so maybe not so posh and not so affluent as people might think. What did I study? I flunked school, actually. So I did not go to university. I did not do A levels. I barely scraped through my GCSEs. So I didn't really study much, to be honest. So I really disliked education. I really disliked school. So I didn't. I dropped out, I guess. I had absolutely no idea what I wanted to do. I applied for lots of different types of jobs. I applied for jobs in retail, hospitality, junior jobs in offices. And how I got into recruiting was I ended up getting an interview for this really small independent IT recruitment agency where I lived, in the town that I lived. I mean, I think there was like 10 people in it. And it was like an apprentice administrator role. This is going back to Rose's point actually about internet. This was back in the day where, and it was a dial-up modem. I mean, this is, it's kind of bring back memories, these questions actually. So I got this admin job, I guess, in this IT recruitment agency. And I had no idea what recruitment agency was, to be honest with you. But I somehow got this job. I think I was probably the only candidate that applied for this job, to be honest with you, because I mean, I don't know how I passed the interview because I don't think I interviewed very well. And I supported consultants, I guess. The CVs used to get posted in or faxed in. I used to have to input, like data entry, input these CVs into a MS Access database, which obviously isn't even a thing, I don't think, anymore. And I just somehow supported these recruitment consultants that I heard on the phone a lot, talking to clients, taking briefs, and I had an interest in it. And I guess kind of to speed up the journey, it was something I enjoyed. Some kind of recruiting consultants took me under their wing, and it just evolved from there. I then kind of moved into sourcing, and then I took on like a recruitment consultant role, and then I then moved in house, probably about 12, 13 years ago now. So that's that part. In terms of kind of what my, I guess what my role is, or what our role is, and I'm sure Rose will chip in with stuff that I've missed, because there's lots that we do. But I guess kind of in summary, I would say that the role of a kind of an in-house recruiter or an in-house talent acquisition specialist, or whatever people call us these days, because the titles always evolve, is that we work internally within an organization, and we partner, I guess, with kind of leaders and business units to help them build highly successful teams, I guess. So we are responsible for that piece. But in addition to that, we are there as kind of an advisor, and kind of a partner to help them improve things like their hiring processes, recruiting strategies, as well as things like helping businesses employ their employer brand, and anything else. I mean, I'd also say that we're kind of a bit of a counselor at times,
HR.
as well. In the sense of people come, because we work so closely with businesses, and because we work so closely with like managers and so on, they come to us for anything. Do you know? And actually, a lot of the time, we might even know the answer, but we usually either go away and find out the answer and kind of work with them on that, or build our own knowledge to become kind of knowledgeable in that, so to speak. In terms of if somebody wanted to be a recruiter, what do they need to be? What do they need to think of to be successful? I think you need really, really hard. I mean, I think first of all, you don't need a specific qualification to be a recruiter. First of all, in my opinion, in terms of academics, I think you need very strong communication skills. You need very strong listening skills, because obviously where you're working with a business, you're working with stakeholders, you're working with candidates. You need to listen. You need to absorb information. You need to be tenacious, in the sense of, an example what I mean on that would be, so there could be times when we're hiring for a role, we might make somebody a job offer, and that job offer gets rejected. You've either got to be a great negotiator to kind of change that decision, or you've got to be tenacious enough to technically start again, I guess. We need to be hard-skinned. I mean, we receive lots of criticism. We receive lots of feedback, positive and negative, which we like and we take on board. We need to learn, or people need to learn, because quite often there would be roles that we're asked to hire for that we have absolutely no knowledge about. So I can't talk for Rose, but myself, I'm not a technical person. Like I couldn't sit here and code anything, and I mean, usually it's quite a laugh between my friends and stuff. Like, I'm actually terrible with like technology. I'm usually kind of throwing the question, how are you a technical recruiter when you're so bad with technology? But I don't need to be great at technology. I guess I need to understand what is a software engineer, what is a quality like QA specialist, what is a data scientist. I don't have to know how to do it, but I need to kind of know what it is, or what kind of technologies you use, what skills you use, etc., etc., etc. So I feel that I've talked a lot there. So I will maybe pass back to you, Dale, or pass over to Rose, whatever this looks like.
I think it's a great reflection that you don't need to have a data science or a software engineering degree to work in a big tech company. So it's really great to have examples of people that have been there and done that and come and found their own path into technology and technology associated roles. So it's a great story. Thanks for sharing.
No, my
Um,
pleasure.
yeah, it's having a little tip to myself about growing up on the mean streets of Surrey. For anyone that's familiar with the southeast of England, those phrases maybe don't go together so well. But the Garden of England, commonly known as Surrey. So, Rose, over to you. Can you give us your version of Tony's story?
So I've had a few careers, and I started out in well, first of all, I grew up in Oakland. I'm from Oakland, California. Everybody knows the Raiders for life. And I worked in produce markets. I work at a ticket agency and all that, and then I got a job working in San Francisco at the ABC affiliate KGO TV. I worked in television, doing payroll for in the newsroom, and I got
And maybe to
laid
put
off.
in for our Gen Z for our Gen Z audience, television is what used to happen before TikTok.
Sorry to
Exactly.
interrupt here, actually. So I'm really sorry to interrupt, but I have to share this. I have never been on TikTok. My mum is even on TikTok, and my mum is 70, and I have never been on TikTok. So that's really bad to
That
admit,
speaks to
probably,
your
but
technology.
there we go.
Yeah, your lack of technology.
Sorry, Rose, couldn't
So,
resist.
no,
Please
that's a good
continue.
one. Yeah, so I was working in the newsroom, and then I was let go, and I started working at the phone company, and I was making half at the time of what I was making in television. And so I was always pleading poverty, and I decided I would go to an agency to get a job as tech support because I felt like I had some technical inclinations. And so I was going to be, customer support, tech support, something. I walked into an agency and they wouldn't let me out. And that's where I became a recruiter. So I did that for a couple of years. And then I used to drive down the freeways, here in the San Francisco Bay Area. I would drive down the freeways and I would look at all the big buildings and write down the names, and then I would go, look in the phone book and check out the companies, look in the newspaper, the San Francisco. I mean, I'm sorry, the San Jose Mercury newspaper, and I would look up all these companies, and then I'd call them, or sometimes I would go sit in the lobby and I would watch people and look at name plates and look at the job postings in the lobby to see, and then I would try to get the name of either like a recruiting manager or somebody or the HR person, and then I'd harass them to get business, or to get a job, right? And a few times it worked, and then another time, when I was in the agencies, I went to one agency, and then I moved over to another agency where basically I told the lady, I said, "Hey, lady, if you just give me a desk, a job, and a computer, I swear I'll get you business." And so, because I was trolling a bunch of businesses in the lobby, the first year I brought in over $1 million worth of business. And so it was an agency that is no longer, by the way. And they had two divisions. One was what we called professional technical, and then there was another division that was more business. And they saw how much money that we brought in, so they shut us down. And I was looking for, of course, a job again. And so what I did was I called my biggest client, and at the time it was At Home Networks. At Home Network partnered or merged with Excited Home, it's an internet company, and I went to go see. It was my biggest client, and it was like 45 minutes away and a couple of bridges over, so it was a big commute. And when I walked into the office to meet with, I called my when I when I talked to the client, I said, "Hey, I'm out of a job," and so basically she said, "Can you start on Monday?" So I was really excited about that. But the funny story on that one is when I met with her as a client, my my boss and my the company thought, oh my gosh, she's landing this big company. And so I arranged to meet with my client, and when the company heard that I was meeting with this company, they sent like the dog and pony show with me. And so I was only supposed to meet with one person, and it was one-on-one meeting, but then like the VP of the region and everybody, that almost up to the owner, came with me. And so when I met with I was like, I'm like when I went to meet the client, her name was Aida Lachaud, and she became my mentor, and we're almost like family. But when I went to meet with her, I brought all these people with me, and she was like, "Oh, I didn't realize, this was going to be such a, a thing." And she was gracious enough to meet with us. And where I was just trying to get, "Hey, can we fill a couple of positions? Can we help you out?" The whole, company was there trying to get, "Hey, can we get your business and fill everything, or, help you grow, whatever it was at that time." But I was a little bit embarrassed, but I just went with it. And after the meeting, when all of the agency people were standing in the parking lot, I kind of held back and I said, "Hey, look, I know it was just me and you." And I had harassed this woman for weeks, like calling her every day, and finally she, agreed to a meeting. And then I bring, the dog and pony show. And so she said, "Hey, I get what, I understand. They're trying to get, everybody's trying to make a dollar. So, I understand. But yeah, we'll work together." And so that's where I was able to bring in all over $1 million from this company. And it was really good. And then she became my boss, and hired me at Yahoo, which was and actually Excited Home. She did eventually hire me there when I got laid off, and at Excited Home. And that was the best experience I could have had. And then she hired me again at Yahoo, where I was there for 6 years. So Excited Home actually went down with the dot bomb. And then I actually started my own recruiting company called Takasa. It's an acronym for Technical Engineering, Computer, and Software Associates. So anytime I was between corporate, in-house, I did my own placements. And as a result, though, after working at Yahoo for 6 years, I actually have worked for agencies, not agency, I'm sorry, I've worked for myself, doing placements. Sometimes I partner with other recruiters where we do splits, what we call splits. So, basically we split the fee since 2013. And so that's also, so, once you learn the industry and what's going on, I'm a little scrappy. I'm different than other recruiters, in that, like, here in Silicon Valley, when you're working for, the Facebooks, the Googles, the Amazons, all that, a recruiter, sometimes you're given, this is what you're going to do. This is what this is the discipline you're going to recruit for. This is what you're going to use to find these people, and so a lot of recruiters are set up for, I don't know, a club, a cubicle life, and what sets me apart from, working at those companies is that in the startup arena, which is where I've spent most of the last, since 2013, so the last 10 years, basically there's a two different worlds, you have to be scrappy in a startup world where you're wearing multiple hats. You're I consider it to be, in fact, I consider myself a hybrid recruiter with sourcing expertise, so that I'm not stuck to, and a problem solver, by the way, so that I'm not stuck to any particular discipline. Because when there's only 2 or 3 people, 30 people, 60 people in a startup, you have to bring in target talent to, and it's not necessarily going to be a software engineer. It could be a product manager. It could be scientist. It could be, and so as a result, I've worked in different domains, different industries, and I really had a great time. And I literally build companies, build the recruitment infrastructure so that these companies can do what they do best and grow.
That's amazing, Rose. Thanks for sharing and giving that narrative is fantastic. And so, thinking about people who might want to enter a tech company who maybe haven't got technical backgrounds and are thinking as tech recruitment as one of their routes in, what's the advice? Maybe for those people, maybe kick us off, Tony. There,
Yeah.
how would you do it today?
Oh, Tony, or
No, you
Yeah,
go,
or Rose,
Rose,
if
actually,
you're
because I'm
there.
processing and thinking. So please go.
So the advice I give is that I have a passion for, the technology, what we do as a company. You also have to have a passion for what who you work for, like specifically, and then what are you doing? What is it that you want to do? So if you definitely have to be a people person. And just the things that Tony already said, good listener and all that. I think that today everyone really needs to be technical because we're coming up on, AI and, using a lot of different tools. And it's evolving into, it's just evolving with, the industry of recruitment is evolving in such a way that, I mean, if you look at, you have to be able to show your worth and, bring your value add. And it's a lot different than when, I guess, we first started recruiting,
Back in the day.
Yeah. There were times when, I mean,
Yeah.
we used to recruit, I used to recruit by, you know, there was a game release, a big game release, and we would show up to these stores in person with a bunch of swag from, the company. And, because a lot of engineers are also gamers. Or we would show up to, I mean, they used to have pink slip parties. They used to have, there's, user groups. And now everyone, not just because of COVID, but even before, It's like you have to actually, what's the story we're telling? You know, what's the candidate experience? So if you're getting into recruitment, you can actually find a niche, in, um, learning the basics and the fundamentals is one thing, but, you can now become a sourcer or recruiter, um, or recruiting coordinator. I mean, there's a lot of opportunity where you can find a niche. Tony?
Yeah, I think I guess just on top of, I agree with everything that Rose has said. I guess in terms of I won't repeat. I'll try not to repeat, but I think in terms of like route to entry for somebody without experience, I guess there's two routes. There's either go into agency, as Rose has talked about her background, and I also come from an agency background, which I don't think I mentioned at the beginning. Oh, I did actually, because I work for a recruitment agency. So obviously, for a recruitment agency, which actually to get into recruitment agencies is, I wouldn't say it's easy, but it's probably quite a quick route to entry, in the sense of recruitment consultancies are always looking for graduate or junior recruiters or recruitment consultants. So that would be a very quick, easy way, or easier way maybe, to get into recruitment and learn the fundamentals that Rose mentioned. However, the only thing about going into recruitment agency is it tends to be very sales targeted, so to speak. Um, so
Yes.
sales would need to be of interest to people, I guess. The other route to entry, going on the back of what Rose said. Sorry, how long have I known you? Um,
Yeah.
going on the back of what Rose said, is you could also look to kind of get in house as like a recruitment coordinator, or a recruitment support, or a trainee sourcer, where you could also then learn the fundamentals to then move into a recruitment role long term. So I guess there are multiple routes to entry. It just depends on who the company is, and what people's interest is. Hopefully
The
that
one
helps.
thing that I wanted to point out, though, is that I don't think I've ever seen anyone um, decide, like from college or anything, that they wanted to be a recruiter. I may have come across one or two people, but most of the time, I feel like we've fallen into it. And a lot of recruiters I know have like social services backgrounds or something like that. But the difference, or that's what I've seen, is we've fallen into it. Um, uh,
Yeah,
yeah, that's
I
that's interesting to me.
sorry to interrupt. I can't hold myself. I have never
Yeah.
ever met somebody that works in recruitment that hasn't fallen into it. Do you know? I don't think I don't think there's been one person
Yes.
that
Yeah,
I've ever
I don't
met,
think so.
and
Yeah,
I think we'd
that's one
remember
thing I
that. I
thought.
think we both remember that. Yeah,
Yep.
definitely. I mean, you're so
And
right there.
the
Yeah,
other thing is that once they figure out how much money you can make doing this without, you know, without being a programmer or an engineer, then that's when they're like, "Oh, wait a minute," But
Unwittingly, guys, you've sort of teed up our next two questions with a couple of your comments. So, Lisa, why don't you hit the guys with our next two?
Also, I'm going to say, I think now we're going to have more people going into recruiting as a result of this podcast. So soon we're going to have those people who are like, my
Yeah. So
goal in
watch
life
out, guys. Watch
is
out.
to watch
The
out. My goal in
competition.
life is to be a recruiter. Tony and Rose, thank you for that.
Oh,
Yeah, the
don't hang out with
competition's
me.
coming.
You'll gain
Just you wait.
25 pounds and but you'll be a good recruiter. I don't know if you heard that.
Yeah, so
it is. Yeah.
is shifting a little bit to the people who want the roles that you all are recruiting for. So just to get some tactics of things that you all look for in that process. We know people always want that, especially when they think of roles at tech companies. So our next stream of questions is some of those tactical things. Like, so from your perspective, we want to start with any red flags that you all want to call out for someone when they are looking for a role in a tech company? What do you see from the recruiting side?
Oh, good question. I mean, I'm going to, if you don't mind, I'm going to answer that because I'm a processor. So I quite often, as you noticed with a couple of the questions before, where I said for Rose to go first, I will process things, I will think about things until I respond. But I actually had something on the tip of my tongue there. So, um, for me as a recruiter, a red flag would be if somebody has moved jobs a lot of times so consecutively. Okay, so I guess find a detail as to what I mean by that. I'll give it from a UK perspective because it varies from country to country, but in the UK, most people are employed on a 6-month probation period in most companies. So if somebody was to submit an application, or I was to come across their profile online, and they have had 6 jobs in the last 2 years, no, 6 jobs in the last 3 years, or even 2 years, whatever it may be, because probation periods can also be 3 months. My assumption there, and assumptions are not always right, by the way, but with my recruiter hat on and with my experience and my assumptions would be that actually there's a problem there. Why has somebody moved 6 times in 2 years? If it's happened maybe once or twice, but somebody's background has demonstrated that they've maybe been in a job 5 years, 6 years, 7 years prior, whatever the length of time might be, then that's different, because we would think more broadly in the sense of, well, okay, maybe one of those companies, I don't know, has gone bust, or maybe it's one of these situations where upon joining the company, all was not what it seemed, which both Rose and I have certainly experienced. So it's not a one size fits all approach, but certainly for me as a recruiter, a red flag would absolutely be somebody that has moved jobs multiple times throughout their career very, very quickly. That
Some
that was my
I
immediate
take a look
response.
at that.
So
Yeah, well, I take a look at, so red flags to me, honestly, I usually don't see the red flags until I actually get like I see more flags when I get to the company that I'm going to, because it seems like nowadays, I give you the example of the last where Tony and I worked together. The problems that we're solving there. There are, it's a startup company, a lot of people wearing multiple hats. The hats that they are wearing, they're not, or the hats that they want to wear, you know, if they had to decide on between 1 and 3 um, responsibilities, they pick the one that they have no experience in. And so, red flag um, is a lot of times people think that they're qualified for something that they have no experience in. And I don't know where they get that from. Would you agree, Tony?
yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Well, particularly based
Yeah.
on our
So,
experience. Yeah.
yes. And so, the for me, it's, a red flag is um, how a person communicates what they do well, and then how they match that with what they're going to. I'm not saying that you can't, it can't be, the skills can't be transferred, but sometimes basically it's a lot of people playing one on TV. And, it's like me saying I'm an engineer. I'm not an engineer. I do play one on TV though, because that's how I try to attract talent by being able to
Yeah.
at least speak, you know.
Yeah. I agree on that. And I guess the example that I was given was I guess if I was reviewing an application, or if I was trying to headhunt a candidate, what would be a red flag? I think if we moved on from that, and we get to the stage where we're maybe talking to potential candidates for jobs. I guess another flag, don't know whether it would be an amber or a red, it probably would be a red actually, would be somebody that's very closed-minded, not open to learn new things. I don't know, doesn't take feedback very well. Do you know, it's more, a lot of the times, as Rose said, kind of, I think it's more to do with the softer skills these days. I mean, if we're talking about a software engineer, for example, 20 years ago when I started in recruiting, which most people have probably never heard of the term IBM mainframe. I used to hire IBM mainframe analyst programmers, which I don't even know if mainframes exist anymore. I mean, I'm sure they do, but I mean, this is even before the internet was a thing. Back in the day, 20 odd years ago, I don't know, it was quite normal for a software engineer to be behind a screen coding, not talking to anybody. I guess that's really evolved and that's really progressed over the last kind of 20 years, in the sense now software engineers need to have really strong communication skills, do you know, and they need to be speaking to other departments in the business and so on. So I just think, I guess in short, I think things evolve. Things are constantly evolving and changing. Not just in technology, but in terms of kind of what companies are looking for from certain roles that they're hiring for. So I think them flags will actually continuously change and evolve over the years. So I've probably made that
Right.
longer than what it needed to be in terms of my
Yeah.
response there, but
Well,
hopefully that's insightful.
taking that and moving on, it sounds like you are talking about this combination of things people should showcase when they're looking for jobs. Any other things that you would call a green flag, something that we should definitely try to highlight when we are applying and looking for jobs?
I can
Should I
tell
go,
you right
Rose?
now I was going to say, in the current climate right now, where there's a lot of layoffs and a lot of people out there looking for jobs, I can tell you right now, the only way I was able to actually get my current job is because I knew someone. So I would say work your networks for sure. You have to, I mean, all these companies that are, they're still, I mean, I hear that they're still laying off, but there are companies that are, hiring, especially because we're here at the end of the year, and they're forecasting for next year. When the layoff started over a year ago, we were told, this might last, into 2024. It might last until, and so we're seeing that. And so the experience has been that a lot of people have been out of jobs and they're applying for jobs, and the jobs that are posted are only posted for sometimes just hours, if not one day, because they get so much applicants. And so you have to be able to make a difference in in those jobs that you're applying for. You have to know a whole lot more than just how to hit click and send your resume. You have to, know someone. You have to have an affinity for the company, the technology, or the position that you're, going for. And then you have to be brave enough to, set yourself apart from other people. And so I feel like it's going back to those days when I was driving down the freeway, looking at companies, sitting in the lobby, you know, having conversations like I, knew what I was doing, and I met a lot of people. Leverage your networks. Leverage your knowledge. Attend, any of these, even if it's virtual, but attend any of the user groups. Create your own user groups. Some people, if you know how to create your own, I guess if you're first getting started, you wouldn't have the chops that I have. Like, the way I was able to be successful in doing my own, placements and my own, company was because I worked for engineers that became VPs and hiring managers and decision makers, so that, in the times that I was in between any kind of position, I could call on everybody in my network and say, hey, I'm looking for my next gig, or if you need help with anything. Sometimes people come, I'm a sharpshooter, so sometimes people come to me and they say, hey, I'm looking for, uh, the next DevOps engineer, or I'm looking for a back-end engineer, I'm looking for a full stack, whatever it is. And I mean, eventually you become, the source of, resources. And so if you're just starting out, you got to sponge everything. You got to take it all in. And, you got to get a little scrappy in this industry right now today, because it's hard to even break in. But there's always a way. Work your networks.
I don't think I can add anything to that. I think you've covered it. I mean, actually, the only thing that I will add to that is to kind of just circle back into Rose's comment about how important connections, networking is. So I finished up a contract yesterday that I've been on for about 3 months, and that actually was with an ex-manager of mine who I'd worked with at a previous company, and I'm due to start a permanent job on the 3rd of January, and that was also through an ex-manager for a previous company. So networking, keeping in touch with people, keeping connected is majorly important in what we do, particularly when we're going through, I guess, kind of rougher times than normal. So I just wanted to give it a real well, and also I know Rose has recently secured. I hope you don't mind me talking on behalf of you. Rose has recently secured
Yeah.
a position through somebody that she helped in kind of job
Yes.
hunting and negotiations too.
Yes.
So it's massively important. Yeah, so that's all I wanted
That's
to add.
right.
Sorry.
Yes, always having, keeping those conversations. I'm always open. Of course, we're all on LinkedIn, and so if people reach out to me, that's fine. But yes, I actually, the way I got the job I have today is because um, I was helping the VP of engineering to negotiate his offer into the company, and then as a result, he came back and said, I'm going to need to build this company." But I was referred to him because he went for uh, a recruiter that I had actually trained previously. She's much better than I am, but and she, she's just not available because she's working at a great company, but she's not available, and so she said, "Hey, I'll give you the next best thing. Take Rose." And so I was able to work with him, help him negotiate. We helped him to negotiate his offer into the company, and then he brought me on. So I'm like 3 weeks in now.
Great. I feel like we were going to ask you about the best career advice you've received, but I feel like you all are giving that to everyone here today about networking and staying in touch with people and leveraging your skills. So I'm curious, what's the worst advice you've heard or ever been had given to you?
Good question.
Okay, this is just a funny. Oh, go ahead.
No, you
I
go.
was going to say.
I have
I
something.
was going to say
Go. Yeah.
the worst advice. I went to go meet a client one time. I was so excited to meet this client that I bought a new outfit. And I'm a little on the heavier side, so in addition to that, I bought a like a I can't even know, I don't even remember what they're called. It's like a shaper now, right? It wasn't a girdle, but it was something. So anyway, to hold me in. And so when I went to meet with the client, I took the client to lunch, and then once we finished lunch, and I was in this whatever it was contraption, but I had a nice suit on. I really liked that suit, and I had some water, but I didn't use the restroom. And as we left the restaurant, the client said, I collect dolls and there's a store right here. I just want to walk through here real quick. And I was like, sure. But in my mind, I was like, so as she walked through the store, she was just sauntering on, and I was like, oh my gosh. And then, when we got into the car, and I was the one driving, so she gets in the car, we go down we're driving back to her office, and we were at a main street, and when we got to the light, and I was 2 lanes in from the curb, and there was a restaurant. It was a Denny's restaurant, and I lost it, and I was like, "Oh my God, I gotta go to the restaurant!" And I pulled in to the restaurant. I drove up to the door. I left the door open. I ran into the restaurant. I didn't even buy a coffee. I just went straight to the restroom. And then all I remember is looking back and her just going, like, I hope she's okay, right? I left my girdle in that restroom, just saying. And then I came back, apologized profusely. I was like, I'm so sorry. I just, oh my God, I got this new, it's just, and so, and then when I dropped her off, finally, at her office, I walked back to the car. And then I thought better of myself. I walked back into the office, and then she was like, "Can I help you?" And I was like, I need to use the restroom just for the road, So I used the restroom. And then this was when I came back and said, this was the same client that I said, "Hey, I got laid off," and then she said, "Can you start on Monday?" And my response was, "How close to the restroom will my desk be?"
I remember you telling me that story, actually.
That's a comedy sketch waiting to happen. We need to see that on screen.
I mean, mine's
So
going to be really
know
boring, actually, what I've got to say.
So I don't know if it's the worst advice, but it's like basically the advice is don't buy a new outfit and don't put yourself in a sausage case to meet a new client.
Mine is very short and very boring, but it's actually quite I don't know. So I think it's probably more serious, I guess. So somebody once, when I first started in recruitment agencies, one of the consultants that I supported gave me the advice of make sure that you're always seen to work longer hours in the office, because that portrays that you work harder. And actually, that stayed with me for many years. It's like this psychological thing that become like embedded in my mind that I have to work long hours to be successful, etc., etc. That isn't the case. Do you know? Yeah, I think I don't know if it comes with experience or things have evolved over the years, but certainly, I don't know. You need to work more
That's
intelligently.
actually very
You need
good
to be more
advice.
clever, or you need to be more organised. If that makes sense. So you don't need to be seen to work ridiculously long hours, as long as you are being productive and you are getting things done and you're being intelligent about what you're doing and how you're doing it. That was really rubbish advice that I was given, but it did stay with me for many, many years.
I believe I come from that same thing, and I agree with you on that. That's very good advice. Yeah, or actually very bad advice, but yeah. I'm actually glad you brought that up.
Good advice from you not to take the bad advice.
Correct.
Now we all
Correct.
have the good advice. Yes.
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 Yeah, correct.
So, guys, we're coming up to time, but thank you. I think I don't think either Lisa or I are expecting to have girdle stories in our first episode. So,
The
huge
bar
bonus.
is set so high now.
And if anyone else can find a podcast with a good girdle story, then we're all ears. Because we're super nice guys, we get this for listeners. We're recording in December 2023, but this episode is going to go out in January 2024. Because we're such nice guys, we're going to give you a chance to, if you want to pitch your current companies and the roles you're going to be hiring for in 2024. If you want to take advantage of this.
Ooh.
Or you can give us a book or podcast recommendation for those picking up in January.
So I'll go first. So I can't believe I'm going to say this. Going back to the whole being a technical recruiter and actually not keeping ahead of the times, which is a really important thing to keep ahead of the times in terms of market trends and all that kind of business. I have never listened to a podcast. How bad is that?
Oh my gosh.
Anyway, I actually, do you know what? It's really weird because I went to the theatre last night with a friend and they were talking about all these podcasts they were listening to. And I'm like, I've never actually listened to a podcast. Anyway, so I'm not going to recommend a podcast because I've never listened to one. My memory when it comes to books and films is also very short, so I'm not going to say that. So I'm joining a company in January 2024 called Acceptor, who are a data automation company that specialise in the financial services industry. In terms of the types of roles that I'm going to be recruiting for, it's a mix. So going back to Rose's, it's a small company. It's about 240 people. Headquarters in London, but they operate globally. And my understanding is that there's going to be hiring across all areas of business. So please feel free to hit me up on LinkedIn. Over to you, Rose.
I would rather recommend a book. And honestly, I believe that with regards to recruitment, you definitely have to, I always break, like, when we're doing candidate screens, or if I'm focused on trying to make a particular hire, I always break it with having a conversation with someone outside of what I'm doing or reading a book. And typically I'll read books on, I'll read a book on maybe a how-to or a serious subject, and then I always read a book on what do you call it? A more comedy, because I think I'm a stand-up comedian. I'm just going to say, put that out there. But the book that I would recommend is Flaming Hot by Richard Montanez. And there's a movie on Prime Video, on Amazon Prime Video, which is a really good movie as well. So inspirational. And I think it'll help anyone get in their mindset of, being able to move into something that traditionally they might not have been thinking about. So, coming up with ideas and, to break sometimes you got to come up with some great ideas in order to move forward. So yeah, good book.
Yeah, thanks for the recommendation. So we've got some amazing insight and experience shared from two, fantastic recruiters who've been there, seen it, and done that, as Lisa described at the top of the podcast. So really grateful for your time, and I think our listeners will be delighted to hear some of your thoughts and experience today. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
And
Thank you for having
best of
us.
luck in 2024.
Thanks.
All right,
Lovely.
I'm going to go take my girdle off
have
now.
a great weekend.
You too.
See you later.